I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z Podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of retention as a service agency Electric, as well as the co-founder of Scaleless. And today I'm talking with Erik Huberman, who's the founder and CEO of Hawke Media, as well as the founding partner of Hawke Ventures. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before we jump into things here, can you give everybody just a quick background on yourself?
Sure. What's the background? Graduated from college in 2008, born in LA, grew up in a small town called Ojai. Went into real estate right when I graduated school with a business degree, and a week later, Lehman Brothers collapsed, and along with the rest of the banking industry, and the Great Recession started. So started scrambling, ended up jumping into digital and launching an online music company that was basically like masterclass for the music industry, targeting independent artists. Built that for a couple of years, got it profitable, realized it was never going to be that big, so decided to move on. Ended up building and selling consecutively 2 e-commerce subscription companies, and then a little over a decade ago, started advising and consulting for a bunch of large and small brands, and quickly saw that there was a big hole in the market where 99% of agencies out there have no idea what they're doing, and the few that are good are really hard to work with, and just went, there's got to be a way to build something that is the best at what we do, but really easy to work with. And that was the original thesis for Hawke. Started it. Now fast forward, it's been a decade. We've got 220 full-time people. We run marketing for about 500 brands actively. We've grown almost 5,000 over the past decade. We've built our own AI system that's the backbone of everything we're doing now, that is helping us basically work smarter and faster than anyone else out there, along with almost 100 investments in marketing tech and e-commerce tech like Klaviyo, PostScript, Tapcart, Fairing. The list kind of goes on. And yeah, it's been a fun ride.
No, that's really awesome. And I know before I was starting the agency and before I sold it as well, Hawke was definitely one of the few that came up, and that was synonymous with being top of the line and best in class agency. So it's just a testament to what you guys have done. But talk to me a little bit more about AI, because there's a lot of fluff and just general BS out there, I think, when it comes to AI and a general level of skepticism, at least that I'm approaching it with when it comes to some of the releases more on the tech side, where you have a lot of tech platforms that are saying they're now AI enabled, and it's like a subject line editor or something to that effect. So
putting ChatGPT into a subject line editor and you've got AI.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, so what's really nice about the whole AI sort of journey we've had is I was introduced to it by a guy named Peter Diamandis and another guy named Marcus Shingles that were running XPRIZE at the time. This is almost 9 years ago, or actually at this point, probably 9 years ago. And we were in a debate about what was going to disrupt the agency landscape. And they kept talking about freelancers. And I was like, guys, if you've ever run a business with a bunch of freelancers, you know that is not going to be what eats my lunch. Like, it is miserable to have an army of freelancers as your staff. Like, you wait till a few of them quit to move to Bali, and you're going to never want to do that again. So I was like, but this AI thing's really compelling, because if I understand it correctly, especially from logic-driven decision-making, like all the things we do that are based on data and logic can be replaced with AI, and not too far off. And at the time, Ray Kurzweil predicted that by the beginning of 2023, computers would be able to mimic AI and would have the computing power to do so. And then by 2029 would be when we have true artificial intelligence. That was the predictions. There's some others in there too. But so I looked at that and said, okay, this was 2015, might have been early 2016. I don't remember the exact date here. Probably could find it. And I was like, okay, so we have 8 years or 7 years, but still that's coming. And so I might as well start working on it. And they literally said, well, why aren't you building something? I'm like, I mean, I'm not an engineer. I have a lot of reasons I'm not building it, but point taken, I'm going to get on it. So I realized that first off, I am not financed with hundreds of billions of dollars to just throw at building some artificial intelligence node. So at the time, we already had Watson from IBM, was kind of their supercomputer you could plug into. And so I assumed that would be what it would look like that at the time, Amazon or Facebook or Google would build some AI node that we would all tap into. So if that's the theory we go with, then how do I have a strategic advantage in that situation? And to me, it went, okay, if we're talking about artificial intelligence, how do you educate that intelligence? And where can I have a strategic advantage? And it came down to two parts. One, we know marketing better than most people from a tactician standpoint. So we can actually teach it how we operate and show our insights and how we look at data and how we make decisions based on that and become a better educator that way. And number two, we collect more data than almost any other marketing agency out there just because of the nature of our business. We work with almost 5,000 companies and we have all these partners and we have all these tech integrations. Like, how do we just start capturing data in every pipe that we can so that when it is time to educate this AI node that someone else is going to create, we have the biggest advantage? That's what we set out to do. And then in early 2022, it was September of 21, I was pitched by this agency dashboard company, really liked the team, realized that was a piece we were missing. And again, I didn't know anything about ChatGPT at the time. I just still was on the same timeline that, hey, we're probably 2 years off from this AI thing. And so now I want the dashboard. Now I want the everything. I want all the data to be pulled in and so that we can actually visualize it. I want to plug in insights so that when it's ready, we can just plug in AI and boom. And that's what I was looking at. So I met these guys, convinced them to let me acquire them. And we bought Morpheo, it was called, out of Toronto, which was a great agency dashboard tool. And then immediately plugged in our data, which created benchmarking, created insights. And all of a sudden, it still takes a little manual work, but we can actually plug in an individual company and see exactly how it's performing on every metric based on the market and how the market's moving. Because the biggest fallacy in marketing is that you should measure it based on what happened to you last month, last quarter, last year. The market's changing all the time. It's the same thing with the stock market. It's why we have the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and all these indexes, is you can actually measure against market movement how you're performing. But for some reason, marketing doesn't understand that. So now we created it. So we have that. On every metric, we can show you how you're performing based on how the market's performing and in real time. And then, of course, we launched Hawke AI. That was August of 22. And I think it was November that ChatGPT 3 comes out. And it was like, perfect. And then the AI craze started. So we preceded it a little bit. And I do agree with you. I hate these hype cycles where everything is just throw .ai on it. The sad truth is we named it .ai before this started. And I almost changed the name to .iq. And just was going to call it Hawke IQ instead. But honestly, at that point, I realized that I think this is one of the few hype trains that's actually legitimate. And we should probably stick with it. And then we plugged in ChatGPT at the end of 22, and we were off to the races in building this thing. So we've now had, tons of companies onboard it. It's, we've really used it more internally for the most part, but we're starting to explore the idea of taking this to market and going out with it. And we know that a lot of the data platforms out there are really nervous about it because of what we've been able to build, and have a great team and ready to go.
Yeah, the pace of development has been frantic. It feels like so much comes out on a weekly basis. And to your point about comparing month over month or year over year, I think nothing made it more obvious that that's not the way that you should do it than COVID, when your numbers were just so wildly out of control compared to what they were a year prior. And now the same, when people are looking for 2022 growth, and we're not in 2022 anymore, or 2021 rather. It really is more about the day-to-day. And I think the companies that are successful are the ones that can pivot with that sort of frequency versus, doing this methodical approach of year over year or month over month.
Yeah, exactly. Agree.
So when it comes to the AI side of the house, how are you sort of planning, and what are you forecasting for the rest of this year going into next year? How are you going to continue to evolve? Given the fact that you have the framework already in place, what are some of the things that you're excited about?
So we're going to actually build a team there. So we've had a great tech team and product team, but we've been using it as an internal tool. And now we're going to actually we're talking to CEOs right now and some executives to bring on to actually spin it out and turn it into its own standalone company. It's still propped up by Hawke Media, but we want to start building that as its own entity. And really go start generating. I mean, it's doing decent revenue already. It's already got a bunch of users, but I really think we're going to miss an opportunity if we don't go way more aggressively at the sales side. So we're really going to build out that side of it this year. The most recent tech that we launched, it's pretty fun, and we're making some modifications, is it's actually telling you all the opportunities you're missing and quantifying it. So it's like, hey, your click-through rate on these Facebook ads are 10% below market. If you adjust these things and make this better, you can unlock this much money right here. And it actually can tell a marketer, here's where you should be spending your time. So that's the next thing that just launched. And soon enough, we're going to start to want to actually be able to make changes in platform. And so we're building, that's frankly a big lift from a tech side. So we're going to probably invest in that soon and start making it so you can actually make the changes that are recommended right there. And then the next step would be to have it actually start making the changes for you, which is really where the vision's going for it. So that's what we're building this year. I think, hopefully all of that is accomplished this year, frankly. We should be pretty close to getting the team together in that sense. And yeah, off to the races. The company as a whole, meaning Hawke Media, we're seeing a lot of growth right now. We've got a lot of momentum. We're doing a lot of M&A. We've bought 13 agencies at this point, and we're looking at a few more right now. So starting to really grow the core business again. We, did what everyone else did the past couple of years and really, got on stable ground, readjusted back to the point. Year over year numbers made no sense. So we just readjusted to like, where are we right now? What do we need to redo in our business? And, made a lot of optimizations on our core business so that we could invest in growth. And now we're back to investing in growth and really starting to build. So it's fun. This is the part of the business I like when it's expanding and growing and building and innovating, that's fun. Maintaining and running, not fun for me. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. My next question was going to be, how do you manage and handle not only the growth within like one company, but what it sounds like is multiple companies? Are you typically looking at like acquisitions as a lever for growth? Are you building in-house as well, or doing spin-offs where you find another CEO to place it at the company? How do you manage and handle that?
Yeah, it's all the above. I mean, like Hawke AI, we're going to find a CEO for. Hawke Ventures, we have a great managing director and senior associate on that. So both of them are really helping run the day-to-day. And then I'm involved with all of these, obviously. What I try to do is, I think people get distracted. Like, listen, entrepreneurial ADD is a real thing. We all get it. And I do think people get distracted with all these different ideas that are popping in. And you're around all these business owners and businesses all the time that really get you fired up about a new thing. I really now try to stay disciplined about like, I will go down the path with a new business model or a new idea if it's strategic to what we're doing and it's not taking away. Because like the most common question I get on the venture side is, how do you split your time between ventures and Hawke Media? The answer is I don't. Like, it's all one thing. Like I'm exploring new technologies and new things that can help us do our job better. And then if they end up being a great software, we're going to put some money in. So it's not like this, tug of war where like, oh God, I'm getting pulled in two different directions. It's like, I'm just doing my job and both fall into that. So it's really focused on the things that we want to expand with Hawke, or where it isn't a distraction. It's actually core to what we do.
Yeah, it's not like you're, a realtor on one end and then you're running an e-com agency on the other. It all overlaps and is synergistic with one another.
My real estate license expired in 2012. We're good there.
Being in Miami here, everybody's a realtor. So
I feel like Miami is going through like what LA was in, I don't know, the 80s and 90s, like where it's like everyone's trying to figure it out. Everyone's got these hustles, but everyone's really a real estate agent. Here it was like a producer back then. Everyone's a producer and nobody actually makes any money. It's finding its way, which by the way, it turns out pretty good. Like it ends up in a really booming economy once you figure it out, but it is funny to see what's happening in Miami in that way.
Yeah, it's quite the diverse group of people as well. Though I'd say there's a lot of activity down here within the e-com and e-com tech field. More on the, I'd say, founder side than anything else. A lot of agency founders, a lot of tech founders moving down this way.
Yeah, no, I think Miami is attracting a lot of good talent right now. It's just still such a small place compared to the big cities. So it definitely works for a lot of people. But for me, I always liked knowing that like I don't have to leave to, like, if I wanted to just stay in LA, I could build a multi-billion-dollar business without ever leaving this town, which I travel an absurd amount. So I don't actually do that, but like, but this week's a good example. I've got an event tonight, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, good solid events to build that could help me with business every single night this week. So I don't have to get on a plane. I get to see my family and I still can be super productive. Like there's just so much opportunity in your backyard here.
Yeah, I mean, with juggling all the various things that you're doing, I feel like you could probably run a masterclass on how to organize and maintain your schedule so that you can so you can get everything done.
Yeah. And it's always a beast, but it's fun.
So, one question I have for you as it comes to the agency and all the businesses you built, what's like one thing that you weren't expecting when you first began this entrepreneurial journey that
Yeah.
you discovered or learned along the way?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is that there's no finish line and it never gets easier. That's something that like until you're done, you're not done, I guess is the point. Like I've really realized that. Like you hear these, and there's exceptions to this. I'm speaking hyperbole, but like there's for the most part, the 99% of business owners, you're not, it's not going to get, there's no finish line. So like what I mean by that is like I used to have these concepts of like, well, if we can just button this up and button that up and get that working, then everything's good and it's easy. Except for then things grow a little bit and then it breaks again. So if there's no point where you're just like in stasis and just things are good and it just works. It's like you're either growing or you're dying. And like, frankly, sometimes you could be feeling a little bit of both. And so, I had these concepts of like building an executive team that would just run the company for me. And I could, just focus on growth and expansion and never have to pay attention. It's just not the case. And for, again, 99%, once in a while, a company will find this. Most of the time they think they found it and then they end up bankrupt. So I've seen that happen a lot. So I think it's important to know when you're getting into this, like either come to terms with the idea that you're going to be, fighting that fight for the rest of your career or have an exit strategy in mind. But one or the other, like, I don't think there's a point where you still own the whole company and other people are running it for you. And so that was a big thing to get my head around because there was a period I was really fighting for that, like year 6, 7, 8 of the business. I was really pushing towards trying to build a team that I thought would like run this thing for me. And then I can't overshare, but a few things came to reality that it was like, that's just not going to happen. And like, you've just got to be the one to drive it as the owner.
Yeah, I feel like there's never going to be somebody who's going to put as much effort or attention to detail as you're going to in your own child,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, they're not financially nor emotionally incentivized the same way you are.
Yeah. What's one mistake that you made early on that you've taken as sort of a learning lesson as you've gone into some of these other ventures?
Yeah, so to a similar accord, trust but verify. Like it's good to trust people. I've got a great leadership team right now, and still I want to see a few details here and there because like it's important to dig one step deeper than just like what you're shown in a spreadsheet or something, and really pay attention to your business. Like don't take your eye off the business, off the P&L, off how things are operating at any point. Like that, because again, this is not meant to be disparaging at all. Like I love my leadership team, but at the end of the day, if this goes belly up and they lose their job, their worst case scenario is they have to go get another job, same role, same pay, they'll find it, versus I lose everything. So like the stakes are just different. So they're, when it's that extra step of like, wait, why we spend that $1,000? It's $1,000. No, that's my $1,000. Not your like it's a small stuff that like in their context, totally, they're managing tens of millions of dollars. The fuck cares about $1,000? I do. So it's, those small things that I heard a story from one of my advisors the other day. He bought a company and all of a sudden he starts operating it and really successful guy. And he's getting stacks this high of reimbursement orders for all these expenses people are spending. And so he changed it immediately. And he said, from now on, you have to get pre-approval for it. He's like, the stack went from this, like from like, a foot high stack to like an inch high stack, like dropped to a 12th. Because all of a sudden, when you actually have to care a little bit, or there's that little bit of hard conversation, we don't need to spend all this money anymore. Interesting. And it's like those simple things that, again, none of those people that didn't want to spend that anymore, I don't hold them accountable for that. I don't think that they're doing anything wrong or that they're, there's immoral or anything. It's just like, yeah, it's not the same thing to them.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. When I go on like to conferences and events and I go out with people that aren't the owners and they'll be like, whatever, just expense it. And I'm like, just expense it, of course.
Just expensive. That should be like a trademark tagline, though. those were definitely my favorite events and conferences to go to, was when I was with somebody like that, and
Right.
we go to dinner. So
100%. Spending someone else's money. It's fun.
I feel like that's just sort of human nature, though, and ultimately, like one of the things I learned is that you have to look, more so internally, even when, like in that example, it's not their fault that they're expensing that much money. It's actually your fault that you set up the structure for them to be almost incentivized to do so, because who the hell isn't going to want to go out and spend all that money when they don't have any accountability for it?
Exactly. You give someone a blank check and they feel like they're making tons of money, they're going to go spend it. And again, that's why I want to be super clear, is like, I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong. It's all based, it's the owner keeping control on it. But that's when you ask, like, what have I learned? It's that control and that management will only happen from you. Like, it's not going to be like, I've tried my ass off to get financial people that will do it, et cetera. And they do a decent job. It's not like they're not there, but there's still just not that, like, they're going to get busy. It's going to be 6 p.m. on a Friday, and they can either approve that $1,000 expense or question it. And they just go, fuck it. After, they just saved me $50,000, screw the 1,000. It's like, no, that's 50. Like, it's that small stuff that it's like, it just matters more to me.
And it all adds up over time.
Correct. Especially that 220 people all spending on different things and different priorities and it not being managed. It's crazy how quick that can just ratchet up into a bunch of heinous expenses.
What's the most ridiculous expense that you've ever seen in your career?
Ridiculous expense. I mean, this isn't that ridiculous, but like one of my guys in New York said, "Hey, can I take the 4-person team to lunch?" And I'll never forget this. I was like, "Yeah, of course." We had just opened our New York office. Take them to lunch. He sends me a reimbursement bill for like $2,500 for 4 people for lunch. I was like, "What? I've never had a lunch like that. What the fuck did you just do?" Like, that was pretty. Like, I just remember that because it was just so like, what did you do? He was the same guy that I went into the office. It was actually pretty funny, and I had a white shirt on. And I spilled something on it, and I looked down. I'm like, I'm like, great, whatever. And I'm like, whatever. You live your learn. Like, he's like, no, you can't go to our next meeting with a stain on your shirt. Dior is across the street. Just go buy a T-shirt. I'm like, Dior is across the street. Just go buy a T-shirt. So same guy. I had a certain relationship with money that didn't relate to mine. I mean, but there's so many other things that we've spotted that I'm just like, it's less like. Most doesn't sneak through. So like, there's not like, I just look at the P&L and go, we spent what on what? Like, generally those bigger expenses won't get passed, like get approved, but it's more the opposite of like the 2018-19 era where everybody was trying to replicate Google's company perks. And we were spending $5,000 a month on kombucha and cold brew in the office and massage Fridays for $3,000 a month. And like, I think, we're spending tens of thousands of dollars on making our office a fucking spa. And then when we got rid of it all, nobody cared. It's like, you realize like all those perks, all those things, like people want a job that's fulfilling and make good money. That's it. All the other shit is trying to mask that over and still cost the company a bunch of money. So why do it? It's like those other soft perks, I don't actually believe do a lot. Once in a while, surprises do, like if they're out of the blue, but the consistent perks of like, we paid for everyone's Peloton membership during COVID. Like, nobody cared. When we got rid of it, I didn't hear a single person bring it up. Like, and that's what sucks, is like thousands of dollars and nobody cared.
Yeah. And you can take those thousands of dollars and invest them in areas that will actually have an impact in the business.
Exactly.
To your point about it not being the same if you're not actively involved in running it, how do you go about handling the acquisitions then of these aforementioned like 13 agencies? How do you go about integration and making sure that things don't fall off when the founder exits?
Yeah, I mean, we set it up properly that it doesn't, and it really just depends on the founders. Some founders do want out, and they're very clear on that, and so we're just finding a home for their clients and their people. So then it's just an expansion that way. But a lot of times, most of the founders we're acquiring, they want just a platform to grow. And so we're basically saying, like, we're going to take all the BS part of running a business off your plate, the legal, accounting, HR shit, and you're just going to go focus on growth. And we're going to align our interests that way. We're going to build a model that way. And that's really where we win in those situations. Like, they just want to go run through a wall and build and don't want to deal with all the other stuff they used to have to. And we can help alleviate that because we have a whole infrastructure. That's the main focus. And if they don't, we set it up that like they ebb and flow with us. So, their success is our success and vice versa.
Got it. No, that makes sense because I feel like, from a software standpoint, it's a lot easier to sort of set and forget and let the keys run. But
Yeah,
when it
totally.
comes to an agency, it is much more owner dependent, especially on the smaller side of things.
And that's exactly it. It's figuring out uh, honestly, it's about being transparent with them. Like if they tell me up front, like these are the things I want to accomplish, we can set up a deal that makes sense for them, and then we can manage it that way. And like it can be anywhere from they want to run a department at Hawke, they want to grow their agency, or they want out. Like those are really the three buckets they fall into, and all three we can pretty much cater to.
Are you ever like a silent partner in any of them, or is it always full integration into Hawk
All
and
integration.
they become part
Yeah,
of the team?
because silent partner doesn't really serve the purpose. Then they don't get the full infrastructure and benefits from us. So it does like it's usually someone that wants the backbone that we have and be a part of it. Not that
As
I'm
somebody who
probably something out there, but yeah.
as somebody who's coming across, hundreds and hundreds of deals, how
Sure.
has the macro sort of environment changed from 2020, 2021 to
Yeah.
today, both on the software side, but also on the agency side?
Yeah. I mean, 2021, more than anything, like, and this happens every cycle. People just believed it was just never going, people forget that it ends. And so you just start throwing money at shit. And it's hard to, now that I've been through it, because like the last cycle, I was just starting my career. So, and I don't know if I'd call COVID a cycle. So everyone's investing in 21. Everybody's like, I bought two pre-IPO stocks that then didn't IPO because of what happened in 22. So it's like you were just watching these people that you'd invest 100 grand in a pre-IPO stock and it'd be worth 400 in 3 months. And then you get your lockup or whatever, but you'd still cash out for a shitload of money just by being well connected enough to get into that deal before it IPO'd. That all switched when rates went up. Um, and so the problem is when rates went up, now you can get what 5.5% in a savings account and treasury yields. So like taking huge ton of risk to make 10%, 12% starts to become less enticing. And so people are not throwing money as so much shit, which means, it's an economy, meaning like you need everyone throwing money at it for it to like it's almost exponential in that sense. So when everybody starts pulling their money out, it slows down really fast. And so the deal flow side of it, that's where our M&A stepped in because there was a period where you might be able to sell a 4 million revenue agency for 3 million bucks, 2 million bucks and just cash out and call it a day. Nobody's going to do that deal anymore because all those people got burned that did that deal. So we've had a good opportunity to do, structured deals with great agencies that everybody wins, but we're not just throwing a bunch of money at them. Same thing on the venture side. The multiples came down, the valuations came down, but thankfully we have money to deploy. So we're able to have a little more prudent conversation and get in for something that's a little more reasonable in that way versus, thankfully we never did these deals, but there are people raising like 50 plus times revenue, which is absurd. Like it literally doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We never got down that path, but a lot of people that were doing that. So, we stayed pretty disciplined. We ended up with some good deals that the past years have been annoying just because the on paper returns are less, but on the venture side, we're waiting a decade to cash out anything. So it's just let's wait for the next upswing and we'll be fine. And I'm sure that'll come. It could take a year, could take 3, whatever it is. Patience is a part of this too. And study a lot of the old guard with whether it's Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, some of these other guys. Like the end of the day, the job with money is to just invest it conservatively and not lose it, and you will be like just what do you call it? Survive. If you survive
Hmm.
and don't fail, you'll do well.
I think some of the most interesting stuff is how difficult, if not impossible, it is to just beat the S&P returns when it comes
Right.
to like stock market investing. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, because there's too much emotion in single pick stocks. Good example, I crushed it in Shopify until last week. So Shopify was doing really well. And then they came out with, I guess, bad guidance last week and it dropped a shitload. It's still doing great for me, but like, I think I lost like, a quarter of its value last week or something like that. It was a big drop. So when you're
Uh,
over indexing in something like that, then the ebbs and flows of the market can take you out versus the S&P 500. You're literally just betting on, is the economy going to improve over my lifetime, which for the past 50 years it has.
so you mentioned Shopify, and you've got so many clients across, I'm sure, a variety of platforms. Where do you see the e-commerce ecosystem heading in the next 5 years? Is it going to consolidate, into a Shopify? Do you still think there's room for, big commerce, SFCC, commerce tools, et cetera? Or how do you see that shaking out?
Yeah, I mean, we just invested in 3 more tools last month. I think there's always room for more tools. It's a constant, how do I put it? It's the innovation's always going. There's going to be new needs. People are going to have new behaviors. AI is going to change everything. And that leaves room for an incumbent to not leverage it enough and a new company to pop up. Because what's hard is like Shopify would be a good example. How are they going to leverage AI? Are they going to all of a sudden have an AI builder that you can just like type in, I want a site that does this, this, and this, and boom, you've got your website? Because that's possible. And if Shopify doesn't build that, someone else probably will, and people will start going to that. So, and that's the current innovation. And now the interesting thing is AI is going to accelerate over the next 6 years, most likely, or more. And so that's going to create all sorts of unforeseen benefits and consequences that will create new innovation, new opportunity. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we're not slowing down on the innovation side, which we're investing in early stage stuff that we're looking for who's mastering that in that sense.
Last question on the investment side. Are you more of a invest in the business or invest in the founding team, given how early stage your investments typically are?
It's both. I say, well, you got to invest on the jockey, but you can't invest in a jockey riding a donkey. Like, you definitely need a great founding team because, a lot of the time they will have to pivot and change what they do. And when I see failures, the failures that we've seen have come from the founders. Like, we haven't bet on anything that doesn't have commercial viability, but when a company's failed, it's because the founder either didn't have the grit to stick with it, didn't have the aptitude. Like, when the failures I've seen are generally because the founder didn't do the right things, not because the company wasn't viable.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I like that one. I'm going to steal that. Well, hey, this was really insightful. I really appreciate you coming on. Are there any last sort of things that you want to touch on, or anything that you want to cover that you're excited about?
No, I mean, that's really it. It's really just a focus on AI innovation and trying to, dominate the marketing world.
Well, before we hop, can you let everybody know where they can find you or connect online?
Yeah, hawkemedia.com is easy, HAWKE media.com. And then I'm on every social channel, @/Erik Huberman.
Awesome. Well, again, really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
For everybody listening, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso, and you can find me at brandonamoroso.com. We will see you next time.